It has been dead silence for Zach Lavine and him trying to get up out of Chicago for a while now. But one team rose from the ashes and are now showing a significant interest in Zach Lavine. Is he on the move? That team is the Denver Nuggets. What would a potential trade look like? Y'all know we're going to talk about it all and break it down, but you know you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Ladies and gentlemen, after we were thinking that Zach Lavine might be stuck in a rut, we have found out that there is a team in the Denver Nuggets that is showing significant interest in a player of Zach Lavine. Now, when we talk about this, we looking at a number of options on who we absolutely want to look up over there. But it's one option in particular that I think that the Nuggets going to have to come off of if they trying to make this trade work. Now, just to go out there and mention it for those that are wondering about the salary cap issues for the Denver Nuggets, the salary cap situation for those Denver Nuggets is just pretty much looking like, hey, they over the first apron that has been placed by the current CBA that the NBA franchises are in right now. Hence means that, look, if they want to trade somebody in, you got to trade out the equal amount of money. And that's kind of like the necessary theme that goes on when these contract negotiations or these trade scenarios are happening between each team. We got to absolutely see how the money works for each individual team. So as it is currently stands, if the Nuggets want to do business, they got to send out a contract that equates to the contract that they are receiving. So let's go ahead and fire up the goddamn trade machine. And look, this is all just speculation. We don't know what really is going on. We don't even know what the trade is going to look like. I assume it's obvious going to involve some type of players. You know what I mean? Obviously, you look at see if you can get some type of draft capital out of this. But if we find up the trade machine and we basing it solely off players, because we know the Chicago Bulls, when it comes to draft picks, you ain't getting nothing out of Alex Caruso. I can't anticipate that you really trying to harp down and get something out of the trade for Zach Lavine, even though I think that will be malpractice. You got to get something, right? But we ain't going to talk about the draft picks today. We're going to talk about the players that the Chicago Bulls could potentially get back in a potential deal with the Denver Nuggets. So we fired up the trade machine, and I came up with this, and it was a successful trade for both sides with just players. We'll talk about the draft capital. We'll leave that to the GMs of both organizations and what they're going to look like. But the Bulls, some may believe that the Bulls might have to try to sweeten the deal by giving up some type of draft capital. Or there's some belief that there might has to be some type of pick swap involved for both sides to be like, all right, this is a sweet deal. Let's get it. You know what I'm saying? But when we talk about the players, the Chicago Bulls, if they were to get in bed with the Denver Nuggets and do business, the Chicago Bulls will receive Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Nnaji. And the Denver Nuggets will obviously receive Zach Lavine. And we probably sweeten up the deal with a seasoned veteran that can give the Denver Nuggets some type of minutes in Torrey Craig. Hasn't really played a lot of minutes or a lot of games this season. Still healthy. Can still come in and give you different things and different looks for your 4 or 5 position, depending on how Mike Malone wants to play it. They will have to figure it out. It ain't my concern if this trade was to be executed. Now, when we talk about the players, let's talk about Michael Porter Jr. first. This is a guy that the Bulls could have drafted her anyway. This is a guy that the Bulls could have drafted, but obviously you understand it to some type of degree to say, hey, this guy had back problems coming out of college, et cetera, probably don't want to really deal with it. All right, whatever, wipe your hands with it, wave your hands at it, and you move on. So now This thing is coming back full circle. But Michael Porter Jr., 26 years old, 6'10" forward, who is young and under a contract that is very, very feasible if you feel like this guy could be potentially flipped moving on down the road. But the good thing is that Michael Porter Jr. is locked up for this season and then 2 seasons after. And the contract and the way that the money looks is $35 million this season, $38 next season, and $40 in the last year of his deal, which ends in 2027-2028 season. Now, if you compare that to Zach Lavine is getting about, 43 this year. You're looking at 45 next year, and then 48 to finish out Zach Lavine's contract. So you can see, in contrast, the money makes a little bit more sense with Michael Porter Jr., especially when we consider a lot of people that re-upped on their rookie extension deals. A lot of these young players that was around got about 30 mil. So there's a little bit of a closing of the gap from Zach Lavine's salary, where you're saying, hey, 40 and 30, that's a $10 million gap. But if you're saying this man got 38 and guys already making 30, with the expectations that those salaries that they signed this season will increase or kick in next year, you give yourself a little bit more room to work with. Michael Porter Jr. this season is averaging 18 points on 38% shooting from the three and 51% shooting from the field. You add size, you add a three-point shooter, maybe not the best defensive guy, but definitely capable of giving the Chicago Bulls something. 7 rebounds on the season. So you say, hey, you can rock with that. That's production that might not be up to the caliber of a Zach Lavine, who's giving you about 22, 23 points per game on like 40% shooting for the three and like 50 something. You know what I'm saying? So it's still close. You're never gonna kind of match, toe for toe when you talk about production in certain players, but you can see there is some type of correlation or some type of silver lining where but MPJ lines up close to Zach Lavine. Now, the second player that will come back to the Chicago Bull is Zeke Naji. 6'9" forward, 23 years of age, and he's locked up for around $8 million per season. It's between $7 and $8 million from now until 2028. The thing is that when you talk about Zeke, he ain't been playing that many minutes, y'all. He ain't been playing that many minutes. Now, I will mention that this is a former first-round pick. I know it doesn't necessarily mean anything, because we got a number for a former first, you know what I'm saying, a lottery pick on the squad, and Patrick Williams, who leaves a lot to be desired. But Zeke comes in, gives the Chicago Bulls another guy to look at, who comes in with some size, some type of capability to produce. It seems like something that you'll have to find a role for this young player. But if you're the Chicago Bulls, who's fully embracing the youth movement, you need to evaluate as much talent as possible. So I'm not mad at this trade. And we get an older guy off our books in Torrey Craig, who's not virtually saying anything or doesn't have a foreseeable future with the Chicago Bulls. You get him out of the bag. You get him out of the way. And then you look at a young prospect in Zeke Naji. See what he can do. I'm not mad at it. And what the Chicago Bulls will be giving up in Zach Lavine and Torrey Craig, Zach Lavine will be giving up an all-star caliber player. Now, I know Michael Porter Jr. has some talent to become, an all-star caliber player, but for the most part, and I'm pretty sure most people will agree, at best, he was the third or fourth option for the Denver Nuggets. Mostly a guy that's going to stand in the corner, shoot the three. You've seen during that championship run, he added a little bit more to than just being a typical 3-and-D guy. So you get something out of that from him. Zach Lavine, you get all-star caliber play. You get stretches to it. Zach Lavine is literally laying on a heater with a blanket and a pillow, and he be scorching hot, sweating. It'd be hot. So when you go ahead and you match that, you say, hey, Zach Lavine, we're going to wipe your hands with you. And then you look at Michael Porter Jr., you look at the situation and say, man, can Michael Porter Jr. elevate to another level? That's going to be solely based on him. But I will say this. the 3-point shooting that he has, the size that he'll bring to the Chicago Bulls, that adds a lot to what you could potentially do as a squad. And I'm just saying, it'll be very, very interesting with some of the lineups, if this was a trade to be executed, how Michael Porter Jr. fits in with the Kobe White, with the Ayo Dosunmu, who these guys are not being mentioned right now, but very well could be included, you know what I'm saying, in any trade. But if the Bulls are able to retain most of their young talent, you get a Michael Porter Jr. who can come in immediately and start at your 3. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Or do you look, however the Bulls want to go with this? Because you can absolutely say to hell with it. We're going to play him at the 4 since he's 6'10", and we're going to give Montes Buzelis a run and be one of the forwards on the basketball court. Billy Donovan does wonky shit like that. And that's one of the wonky things that I'll be interested to see. I ain't going to lie to you. You give me a starting lineup, Kobe White, Josh Giddey, you're looking at an MPJ, a Montes Buzelis, and a Jalen Smith at your 5 after you move Nikola Vucevic. It's intriguing. I'm just saying, it's very, very interesting because not only do you add a nicely talented young player, you add a champion to the team. Add a young champion to the team. That's the type of experience you want around. And the Chicago Bulls, they have a lot of good talent right now. And you can argue that they have an abundance of talent with some of the other teams who might be in a bit worse situation, even though the Bulls appear to be trapped in the middle of this. But the Bulls have a lot of young talent with NBA experience. And what better NBA experience than to add in a young 26-year-old who's a champion and who knows his role? Because my train of thought is that Montes Buzelis is the future. I'm looking at Montes Buzelis as the superstar of the future. Those are my eyes. That's how I'm looking at it. So if Michael Porter Jr. can't be that number 1 option for now, or if that's even a discussion, I know that he can fall right in place wherever that may be. I don't think he's going to come in and suddenly just say, I'm number 1, y'all number 2, et cetera, et cetera. I think these guys can really, when you add him, you could just look on to continue to just feed the hot hand. You got young scorers just about everywhere on the squad. You're talking about coming off the bench and guys that are going to start for you, and you live with it. You live with that decision. You know what I'm saying? The Zach Lavine stuff has been, you know what I'm saying, lingering over the Chicago Bulls' head for over a calendar year right now. And I think, honestly, I think this is probably the best trade rumor I didn't heard, because we didn't heard that Zach Lavine was going to go to LA and get traded for D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, a bunch of other whoops, you know what I'm saying, a bunch of other dupes or whatever the hell it was. We'll pass on that. We'll pass on that. Then it was something about Sacramento coming in to say today. We'll pass on that. We'll pass on the Kevin Huerter if he even still there. Like, what? We'll pass on that. We'll take an MPJ to come in and fill the void that Zach Lavine is leaving. To me, this is one of the best trade rumors, or one of the best trade stories or reporting that we've heard. It's probably one of the best ones. And it sounds like the money can work. It sounds like the exchange makes sense for both teams. I think both teams win. The Bulls, they go out there and they get a young champion in Michael Porter Jr., who's still youthful. You know what I'm saying? Who can come in and do a lot of things for you. And those guys over there get an all-star caliber player who one of the best spot-up shooters in the NBA to work with Jokic and Jamal Murray. And Zach Lavine has shown that he don't necessarily have to be the one. He's been doing it this season. But guess what? When Nikola Jokic is having trouble, Zach Lavine can light that bitch up. And when they need to close, you don't even have to put the ball in his hands. Tell him to spot up if you want to. He more than likely will be able to take care of basketball. You live with that. But before we get up out of here, I do got to ask one question, though. Because Zach Lavine just missed the game. Zach Lavine just missed the game. We're talking about Monday versus the Raptors. Zach Lavine missed the game. Monday versus the Raptors. I'm not saying they fake injuries. I'm just saying when trade discussions begin, teams typically sit players down. So, and there was already reporting from the guys that reported this, and Tony Jones and Sam Amick from The Athletic, pretty much saying it's significant. So if there's significant discussions and Zach Lavine is sitting on Monday when I believe he was all right, I ain't saying he's faking it. I'm just trying to connect dots here. It might be in full swing and may be coming down the pike soon. But what do you guys think that Monday was Zach Lavine's last game? Let me know. Let me know. We do have a game tomorrow versus the Boston Celtics. Will we see Zach Lavine? That's all I'm asking. We shall see. The next question I want to ask before you guys get up out of here is, can we see Michael Porter Jr. carve out a role for him in the Chicago Bulls uniform? I absolutely can. And I don't think it has to be limited just to the role that he had in Denver. I think it can be expanded a little bit more. Now, how much you expand that's going to be up to him and Billy Donovan. But I do think that he can have an expansive role with the Chicago Bulls other than, hey, we're going to run a couple sets. We need you to hit the three. I think it's going to be a little bit more than that if you acquire a guy like Michael Porter Jr. But that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode. Before you get up out of here, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell as well. The lines are open. If you want to be a part of the mailbag episode, call in, state your name, leave your take on the state of the Chicago Bulls. The number to do so is 773-242-9219. And it's also in the description. I appreciate y'all, though. Make sure you always see red, and y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac.